And typically how we conserve them is by having a conservation restriction placed on the property to ensure that they are protected um, in a conservation-minded way, in perpetuity. Um, Usually someone will own it and another party will hold the conservation restriction. So the Bolton Conservation Trust in this case owns a couple parcels of land, and we're asking the town to hold the conservation restriction. We have different arrangements, even with different entities, but the town will own land and the trust will hold the conservation restriction just to make sure that stuff is protected. So we acquired these two properties. One is right adjacent to Bower Spring Conservation Area, off of Old Harvard Road, and the other one is off of Warner Road. So there's actually two parcels in that area that total around 10 acres. Hopefully you guys got some sort of information packet to summarize a lot of this and where they're located, but that is the overall ask, is to accept the conservation restriction. The trust is going to pay for the paperwork and the lawyer fees to make sure all that gets done.
Excellent. We appreciate you coming forward with these. Um, Jenny, do you want this as two separate motions or as a single motion? Doesn't matter. Okay. Bill, just to confirm, are you recusing yourself from these?
Yes, because of my role on the Conservation Trust Board, and I was part of working on these particular CRs.
Okay, so that was the reason that we actually had pushed this to this meeting so that we would have a quorum of members who could vote. Brian, do you have any questions?
I do, at the risk of humiliating myself. I just want to make sure that I'm actually reading these maps correctly. So, Drew, I don't know if you have them, or maybe somebody else can just confirm that the parcels in question, if I look at the map that's marked Hazel CR donation, it's the two parcels that have the bright yellow outline. And then, so Marie, can you confirm that for me?
Mm-hmm.
It's like 25.3 and 25-4.
Yep.
It's like.
Yep.
And then, so then on the map that's labeled Zeka CR donation, is it also that entire piece that's outlined with yellow? Oh, great. Oh my gosh, Jenny, you're amazing. I didn't even want to ask you to do this, but you're doing it. Okay, so yeah, those are the two right there. And then on the other map, it's what's marked with the yellow highlighter, right?
Yeah, there's a very thin strip, about 20 feet, that goes to Old Harvard Road.
Yeah. Okay, sure. I just wanted to just clarify that that was what we were referring to. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Any other questions? Okay. And I don't have any questions either, but in total, this is about 30 acres that's being permanently dedicated to conservation. So I think that's just fabulous. Is there a motion?
Sure. I will move to accept and execute the grant of conservation restriction from the Bolton Conservation Trust on the two parcels of land related to the Hazel property and the one parcel of land, the Zeka parcel.
I will second that. Roll call. Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Abstain.
And I am also a yes. All right, Drew, thank you very
Thanks,
much. We
Drew.
appreciate it.
All right, thank you guys. Have a
Thanks,
nice
Drew.
holiday.
Have a great night.
And happy birthday.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, the next item on the agenda is a departmental update from our fabulous library. And I see that we have Kelly Collins, our library director, as well as at least one trustee. See
We have
Caroline
two.
Robertson. Oh, there's two. Great.
Beth Nolan Connors is our, I guess, newest trustee, and she's also the chair this year.
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for coming. This is part of the select board series of learning all about all of our different departments and helping to educate us as well as the general public about what every department does and what your needs are and goals. The select board has been provided with the detailed written update that was supplied, but Kelly, I don't know if you want to just take us through some of the highlights and talk a little bit about the library and then follow it up with some goals and possible challenges.
Sure, and not to add to the pressure on Jenny, but I actually just emailed some visuals, and Jenny's better at screen sharing than I am, so if you want to do that, we can. So, I was actually curious myself and looked up a few facts about libraries. One of the things that I found out is that the idea of a free public library kind of grew up beside the idea of free public education in the New Republic. And by 1833, the first library that was tax funded was founded in Peterborough, New Hampshire. And for a very, very long time, and I've been doing this for a very, very long time, libraries were very concerned with providing books and other forms of information, but primarily books that would educate and enlighten and make people better citizens of our democracy. Of course, libraries have changed, and we took a look at some of the statistics that we've turned into our, I don't want to say governing body, but the Mass Board of Library Commissioners. Every year we collect statistics and send those to them. And this is what we came up with comparing FY, excuse me, 24 to 25. This library has seen a huge jump in visits to the library. That's just people walking through the door. So there's that. If you scroll down, you'll see more. Our total circulation is up. To be very honest, our circulation of electronic materials has been through the roof in the last year. It's gone up. I can't even read this, something like 30%. But books, traditional books, are still our meat and potatoes here. Excuse me. So keep going. Thank you. As you can see, circulation of physical materials is also up. So books are not dead. That's the good news for people like me. One of the things that we have our eye on, and if you'll take a look, it's kind of showing at the bottom, is that with this explosive growth in downloadable resources and a big group of new patrons who want to borrow these things from the library, can we squish that up just a little bit, nudge it up, is the cost. And I think we did mention that at the very end when we talked about tricky bits. For me to buy a hardcover book for the library, this one in particular, this is a brand new one about the wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, $35 retail. We get excellent discounts on traditional materials from a contract through the MHEC. So that book would cost us $19.25, which means I can buy 6 of them if I need to, and not really blank. If there's a lot of demand, we can fill it. But if I want to buy an ebook for our people who only use ebooks, that ebook is going to cost me $50 and we don't own it. We buy a license for people to use it for a particular period of time. And then if we want to extend that usage, we have to pay that fee again. And unfortunately, the place where we're seeing the most growth, which is a challenge to meet, is in downloadable e-audio books. And those are the most expensive of all. And we don't get a price break on that. So you can see for this particular title, that would cost $109. So that is something that we are keeping an eye on. As books on CD have really died out, we're getting more and more people in here who will come in, get a library card, ask us how to download materials, and say, see ya. And that's a different kind of library user altogether. But we try to please everybody. We try to provide for everybody who walks in, meet them where they are, and provide what they're looking for. I'd say at a reasonable price because it's free. Did trustees, you want to add anything to this? Nope.
I guess the only other thing I would add is that in addition to this trend, you know, the other thing to point out that there's an increased presence and availability of Internet of Things as well. So sort of the mix of the kinds of materials, right? And we're just talking about materials, not even really the experiences, is really, you know, broadening. And I think, you know, that's in the report as well. But it's just been a really interesting thing over the past, I guess, 4 years I've been a trustee, just to see the data each year and to appreciate the shifts in usage patterns. But Kelly and her staff has done a great job, you know, tracking the data. You know, we're being a lot more driven by the actual data because a lot of the people, the patrons, we don't actually see. So there's been a real interesting shift. Wow, appreciation for some of the more traditional things a library is known for continue.
And I would add to it that I was surprised to see that the biggest increase is among the adult users of the library too, really. So there's been a percentage of increase among adults usage. And, you know, I think the electronic books and ebooks and, you know, I think that's just going to continue to stay or grow. But, you know, the cost for them, I think, is going to continue to grow as well. So, but,
Right.
and forgive me for if you hear a barking dog, but perhaps you won't hear a barking dog, but forgive me in advance if the dog is barking.
And if
Sorry.
you hear a barking dog, it would be weird for me because I'm in the library. The other thing, that kind of, I guess I have the advantage of looking back at a long career. This is all I've ever done besides wait tables a million years ago, is for a very long time, probably 150 years, libraries were very much concerned with providing a really good atmosphere for books. And it's only been in the last 30, 40 years that we've started talking about making libraries work as a place for people to interact, as a place of community, as a place of valuable interactions. And I think one of the things we're talking about when we look at the increase of people who are using the library, just walking through the door, which is what that first number is, we're looking at people who are coming in here to get away from the distractions at home if they work from home. We are looking at people who may be out on the road and they'll stop here and get some work done before they go on to their next appointment. We have tutors who meet students here. We have small and large community group meetings here. And these are all things that have nothing to do with reading, but they do have to do with enrichment and community. And so that, I think, is a really heartening thing to see, particularly from the perspective of someone who helped to design the library, is that, you know, initially we wondered if people would really use all this space. They're not only using it, they're embracing it. And we've added things like portable charging stations. We've reduced the number of public computers and increased the number of carrels because people are bringing their own equipment in. We've just redesigned our teen space because more and more we're seeing teens don't particularly want programs, although they get programs here. They want a place to hang out meet their friends, get their school projects done. And you've all heard me say this before, and I will say it again, and I will never stop saying it. We are absolutely the ultimate partner with the local schools because we're open nights, weekends, and all summer when the school libraries aren't available to students. We truly do serve all ages from birth through seniors. In fact, tonight, the senior book club is meeting in the library. If you want to have a good time, join the senior book club. They have more fun than should be legally acceptable in this building. I'm always hearing them yucking it up and laughing in there and having a great time. So it's, you know, it's nice to see the camaraderie that comes with making the library not just a warehouse for books, but a good place for people to be.
Great, thank you. And do you want to just hit maybe on a couple of your biggest goals for the year and a couple of what you anticipate to be the biggest challenges to the extent you haven't already covered them?
Sure. Goals. One of my goals for next year is to really try to hit home with the message that we are here to save people money. As the economy becomes more and more challenging, I would like to make an effort to help people understand that using the library is a good thing for the bottom line at home. We are going to continue to reach out to other community groups, nonprofits, and other town departments and see if we can come up with ways to work together. One of the notable things that we did this year was to work with the Council on Aging. Lisa, we won a grant from Emerson Hospital or Emerson Health to put memory kits in her office and some here that can be checked out. That was kind of the core collection in our Library of Things, which Caroline mentioned. We really want to look at technology and to see if some of our technology may be completely obsolete. I'm looking at books on CD, for example. I'm told that cars no longer come with CD players. I drive an old car. I have a CD player, but no one's really using them anymore. So do we want to look at the numbers and see if it makes sense to reduce the size of that collection? If you reduce the size of one part of the collection, what do you use that space for? So there's always an evaluation, and the space here is never static. We want to reach out to the new residents at Alta Neshoba Apartments. This is something that is new to all of us, having such a dense population group going in all at once, and see what we can do to appeal to them and to get them to come in and be part of the community. And I have to say this, after going through last year's budget challenges, we want to continue to meet or exceed the Commonwealth's minimum standards for public libraries. It's very important that we stay certified. And the minimum standards are very minimal indeed, but we came perilously close to losing that status last year. So obviously we want to meet or exceed again. So those are our goals. Beth, did you have something to say?
No, I was just nodding in agreement.
Okay, I saw you waving.
Oh no, I talk with my hands, but yeah, so no problem.
You know, I'll add
Okay.
one thing that I think is I think it's terrific and really reflects your very sage approach to managing the staff and really taking a look at the skill sets and ensuring that everyone on staff, right, is the skills are developing along with the needs of our patrons, right? So
Mhm.
where there may be gaps, and in particular in some people who've been on staff for some time but need to think about new ways of doing things or just be aware and much more comfortable with some of the, you know, more technology oriented capabilities. Kelly and Tim, as her partner, are going to start looking at ensuring that there is a minimum standard of skills as well, just to continue to invest in the great staff that we have, and to make it a really great place to continue to be and attract new folks as we need them to come in.
That's correct, because the last thing we want is, okay, the first thing we want, let's say it in a positive way, anyone should be able to come in and ask a question about technology, bring in an e-reader of some kind and say, I'm having trouble downloading or whatever, having trouble using the app. Any one of us should be able to answer questions about that. None of us should be saying, oh, well, you have to talk to so-and-so and he's not here this week. And, so we really have been working hard on a list of minimum competencies, self-evaluations required of all staff. And then we're looking at where the holes are, where the gaps in our education are, and seeing if we can fill those in with some extra training.
Right. Okay, and do you want to hit just briefly on a couple of what you see as the biggest challenges? And whether there's anything in particular that the select board could help support you on?
Well, we told you about our well and water issues, which I guess is a DPW issue, but you already know that we're having well and water issues, and that's
Well, familiar.
in Randy's very capable hands. That's having an impact on our budget, having to bring in water for the staff and the public. We did work with Marie that we found out something in our building is mysteriously using a lot of electricity. And Marie was able to identify over time there's been a strange spike in usage, not in the electric rates, but in usage. Randy thinks it's something to do with the HVAC, but what it would take to have a study done to pinpoint the location of the overuse, that's up to you. Right now it's just a guess, but it's probably a good guess knowing Randy. I personally would like to expand our open hours, but with budget pressures being what they are, I think I will not see that this year anyway. We did mention a couple of other things that I hope that you can help us with. One is we value Marie and we value Michelle doing their part to fill in where HR is not on the staff anymore, but there's really no substitute for someone who does HR for a living and knows it inside and out. And we would love to have someone devoted to HR back on the town employee roster. We also told you that we have hit a couple of roadblocks with methods of payment, particularly for technology. A lot of technology companies simply will not take anything but a credit card as payment. And the town doesn't have a credit card and doesn't want to use one. And I understand the reasons, but it does mean that if we want to offer a new technology like we are right now, on the verge of offering Yoto boxes for kids, it means that one of our employees has to put it on a personal credit card, probably has to eat the sales tax, has to wait to be reimbursed. Or what we ended up doing with the Yoto boxes, we used Amazon because we have an Amazon account and they will invoice us. But the tech companies that refuse to take paper checks and will only do a wire transfer or a credit card, that is a real barrier to our service when these are things that we want to make inroads and start offering to people. So I don't have an answer to that, and I don't want to make anybody uncomfortable. I know there are really good reasons that we don't have a wide variety of methods of payment, but paper checks, I mean, some companies just laugh at us.
Well, I really appreciate you bringing that to our attention. That certainly is something that was not on my radar. And I think you've given us a lot of information to think about. And I'm so glad that the override passed and we were able to preserve all of the services that you guys do provide. I think they're incredibly valuable to the town. I appreciate all of your hard work. Brian and Bill, either of you have anything you want to add?
Just a couple of quick comments. First, Kelly, just wanted to say I thought that the written overview that you sent in advance was really terrific, and the visuals today were great. So credit to the team that put those together. And then just picking up on one of the points Caroline had mentioned, I really liked reading about the sort of the performance evaluation and investment in staff training initiatives that you and Assistant Director Joyner are doing, Kelly. I thought that was really forward thinking. So I was glad to read about that. And I'll just agree in thanking you for raising a couple of those what might be tricky issues. Just I think we were aware of some of them, but a couple of them, like the methods of payment thing, is just something I wouldn't have known about if you hadn't brought it forward. So thank you.
Well, the strangest thing is that a company like GoDaddy will actually keep your credit card on file and will charge you over and over and over again. And I wasn't even thinking about this until last year when it came time to register our domain, and I found it was already on my credit card bill. I didn't have to do anything, but that I wondered what would happen if I were retired and I opened my credit card bill and found that. So that is something to think about. I don't know how widespread a problem it is, but I know, again, it has been a barrier for us to really innovate. And I don't want to always fall into the trap of saying, well, we'll do it on Amazon because they'll bill us. It's not the best reason to do business with Amazon. So I want to thank Marie, because if it hadn't been for her grace and her experience and knowledge, I don't believe we would have gotten through last spring's budget stress as well as we did. Marie is a big champion of libraries, and I felt that every time we talked about all the latest developments. It was just really great to feel like, well, all of us town employees, all of us department heads, but I felt like she was really on our side and trying to preserve as much as she could. And I really appreciated the approach that she took.
All right. Anything else from the board?
I have one comment and one quick question. The comment is the ACH credit card issue is a big issue in nonprofits as well. We run into that quite frequently, so I'm familiar with that. And Kelly, correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't there some movement in state legislatures regarding the cost of ebooks to libraries?
The last I heard was, I believe it was in Maryland, the state of Maryland sued and lost. And there has been no movement. What they were told basically is that publishers can charge whatever they feel like charging, and you just need to deal with it and make room in your budget for it. So we're always looking at the numbers. We're always doing a balancing act. We try to make really smart choices. I think our collection is superb for a library this size. And part of that is knowing our community and knowing what people want and buying strategically so that we're not wasting money, so that we can put the resources where people are going to find them and use them. That's actually something that I think is a particular strength of mine. But the entire staff works that way too. There are 3 of us who are book selectors or material selectors, and we all work that way. You know, we're close enough to the ground that we know what people want here.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate you guys being here. And I think we got a lot of very valuable information.
Can I tell you about a thing that we've done this year that I'm really, really proud of? That's worked
Yes,
really well.
yes, ma'am.
I have 30 seconds left.
Go for it.
Last spring, when the federal government was looking a little, it was being disrupted, shall we say, we were looking for something that we could do that wouldn't be partisan, that would be within our staying in our lane. And we hit on the idea of offering copies of the Constitution that we order from the US Government Publishing Office. And we have handed out over 500 copies of the Constitution to date. We have about 400 more sitting in a storage cubby, and people are just so joyful when they see it. They're like, "Oh, I haven't read this in a long time," or, "Oh, I know someone who needs to read this," and they'll scoop them up and take them. And so I think it's a good thing to do for the 250th. I think it's a good thing that all of us get back to that basic document. But it just reminds me of, this is what we're here for, to help people be good citizens.
That's great. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you all and have a wonderful holiday season.
Thank
Happy
Happy
you.
birthday. You never know what Brian has planned for you tomorrow night.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a good rest of the night.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are actually pretty much right on time. Our next agenda item is a discussion about Century Mill Estates and remaining impediments to potential road acceptance by the town. This agenda item is at the request of some of the residents of Century Mill Estate. And I would just like to preface the discussion a little bit in terms of just setting expectations for everybody, which is that I think the select board generally is very aware that Century Mill Estates has had longstanding ongoing issues related to the development of the entire project. The select board is not unaware of the struggles that the homeowners are going through. So the purpose of tonight's discussion is to understand where the parties all stand, and what the town can do, and what it can't do in terms of trying to move forward towards street acceptance. So that being said, I'm going to just remind anybody who wants to speak about this that you will need to use the raise hand feature. And when I call on you, you can unmute yourself. Please introduce yourself, state your name clearly, as well as your address. And then we will hear what you have to say. Marie, do you want to give a little bit of a background as to where we are?
I would defer to the memo of the board or to Kai.
Okay,
If it's okay, I apologize. I don't see the raise hand feature. I use Teams. But if it's okay, I'd like to just say a few words.
okay, please introduce yourself and state your address.
Thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Kai Chuang. I, along with my family, have been residents in Century Mill Estates since 2013 on 71 Mill Pond Road. I have just a few brief remarks and would like the board to hear from the many other CME residents on this important issue. I think we are here today because the CME road acceptance process being blocked by a DPW report that has been criticized by the planning board, challenged by the CME residents, and has not been adequately explained by either the town administrator or the town planner. We are here today because the town administrator reneged on a previous agreement to update this flawed DPW report. And then finally, we are here today because, Kate, as you mentioned, the road acceptance process is failing the residents of Century Mill Estates. We have worked within the town's process for years and continue to prefer that approach. But we are prepared to pursue other means if necessary. As the highest elected officials for the town of Bolton, we're asking for your help in resolving this matter, starting with updating the DPW report. Thank you.
Okay, so I would just like to take this opportunity to say what I understand the status to be, and how the process works. And I will preface this also by saying I am not an expert in road acceptance or subdivision law. But my understanding is that the development that there is a punch list of items that was developed by our peer review engineering firm Niche in 2023. And that there was a supplemental list of items prepared by our Department of Public Works Director, Mr. Hegland, also in 2023, that set forth a number of items that needed to be done, either fixed or repaired, or otherwise addressed before the roads and stormwater management facilities for Century Mill are ready to be accepted by the town. And once they are ready to be accepted, that is a recommendation that would come to the planning board, come through the planning board to the select board, at which time we would make a recommendation to put it on the warrant for acceptance at a town meeting. And there are standards that must be adhered to in terms of the quality and the design and the construction of these roadways that ultimately, after acceptance, the town of Bolton will become responsible for maintaining. And my understanding is that there is a fairly lengthy list of items that need to be addressed. And there hasn't been a whole lot of progress in figuring out how to address them or who is supposed to be addressing them. But what I do understand is that there are 3 options that are available to the residents of Century Mill in terms of how to move forward. The first option is for things to continue as they are, which is that they would not be publicly accepted roads, and the homeowners would be responsible for repairs, maintenance, snow removal, all of those things. That's choice number 1. Choice number 2 is for the homeowners to band together and develop a plan amongst themselves to remediate the issues that exist so that the streets and the stormwater systems are in a place that it is appropriate to recommend that they be accepted by the town. And the third option, which admittedly I don't fully understand, but I've been working on learning about it, is a betterment process whereby the town of Bolton would undertake to do work to make the streets come into compliance. And there is a process by which the homeowners would be assessed betterment fees that would be paid either all at once or within the course of a number of years, I think up to 20 years. And that process is more complicated in that it requires specific percentages of the homeowners to agree to that process, and it must be brought to town meeting, and there would be a bylaw that would need to be adopted in order to make that happen. So that is my understanding of the 3 options that exist to move forward on this. Further, my understanding from the planning board is that there hasn't been really meaningful communication and sit downs to try and work through the list of open items and an effort to sort of narrow those into an agreed upon list of what is minimally necessary to move towards street acceptance. So that is my understanding. And I am happy to hear from any of the residents who either want to correct me or provide additional information. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I think I, at least for myself, am sensitive to the plight that you guys are in, but there are a limited number of options.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Thanks,
just-
Kate. We have 15 minutes. You've taken time.
Please don't interrupt me, and please wait to be acknowledged. But there are limits as to what the select board as a body is able to do. Okay, I see, C. Valenti has his hand raised.
My name's Christopher Valenti. I live at 72 Mill Pond Road. I've been a resident here with my family since 2015. And as I listened to your explanation of where we're at, I'm just curious where the board stands with the punch list that was created in 2019 and the agreement that was made in 2019 for the residents to go ahead and final pave the sections of the subdivision that was accepted by the planning board and agreed to by all the residents and the town officials from the planning board, and why that has not been discussed at all in this conversation. Can you answer that?
I can speak to that and say that I don't have information in front of me with regard to 2019 discussions.
Were you a member of the select board or any of the town boards at that time?
I was not.
Was anybody on the select board partial to any of those reports? Is anybody aware of those?
I think all three members of the select board are new within the past 2 years.
So there was an agreement that was made in order to final pave the entire subdivision. And that is when all the town boards agreed to a joint check agreement to pay the paving contractor out of funds that were being withheld from the developer. And in doing so, that final paved and created a final punch list that was available to the town boards for acceptance of the road. The developer failed to perform his duties from a paperwork and engineering perspective, but performed all of the work in 2019. And unfortunately, in 2020, everything stopped. And everything that was done from that point on just has basically been forgotten about. And I think that this list that was created by your peer group is basically throwing away all the hard work that the planning board did prior to this report being put together in 2023. I think you're doing the residents an extreme disservice by not researching that information.
Okay, well, I appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and certainly that is something that I will look into, but I will also highlight the fact that the select board is not the entity that makes recommendations for street acceptances. That comes through the planning board. And I also, one of the concerns that I have, and this is addressed to all of the residents who are attending, is it's difficult for me to understand what authority anyone has when they're speaking other than as an individual homeowner, when it seems to me that that if there was a homeowners association or a representative designated, it's hard for all of your different homes to negotiate a resolution of this with the planning board unless there's cohesiveness, I would think, amongst the homeowners in terms of having discussions with the planning board to narrow the issues and really make some forward progress.
I just have one other comment to that. I don't think that most of the homeowners are in a position to be able to discuss the report with the planning board, because that report was developed by a registered professional engineer. And the first comment that would be made the minute one of us raises our hands would be, are you a professional engineer? And none of us are. I build roads for a living, but I'm not a professional engineer. I don't think that this is not a very fair situation for any of the residents, and we're all taxpayers. We all pay the same taxes as everybody else that's on this particular meeting right now. And we're not getting a fair shake. The reason why we came to you is because there is nowhere else to go. You're the top of the heap. You represent all of the residents of Bolton. You were all elected by the townspeople to be the voice of Bolton. We're looking for your help. When can we expect to get it?
I appreciate that. I did just see someone else raise their hand. I think, Kristen Gaynor. If you want to unmute yourself.
I was just agreeing to Chris and Kai.
Okay, I'm sorry, can you just state your name and your address?
Kristen Gaynor, 20 Cider Circle.
Okay, thank you. And I'm looking, I thought I saw another hand go up.
There are people clapping in agreement. We've been doing this for quite a while. We were promised certain things. The town agreed to certain things and disagreed to certain things.
I'm
We're
sorry,
getting
can you
cornered.
please identify yourself
Sorry,
and state your
sorry.
address?
Sorry, my name is Jessica Collier. I live at 11 Cider Circle.
Okay, thank you, go ahead.
So we've been getting pulled around back and forth for many, many years now with promises, and then the promises are not happening. So we're wanting to get this finished, to have our roads done.
It sounds like what you're telling us to do. Bob Gallagher, also 11 Cider Circle. It sounds like what you're recommending we do is that we all band together and maybe we have to go a different route with it, because it doesn't seem like after 11 years now, we've made zero progress. We're still in the same spot we were before.
Right, well, I mean, I certainly can't give you legal advice, but what I can say is that I think this is a personal opinion, I think it's hard to move forward with the planning board unless there is a united effort for everyone to sit down and talk with the planning board about what everybody's responsibilities are going to be and how to move forward. It can't be done piecemeal.
And Chris, as Chris said, we actually did that years ago and we're still in the same spot today. Well, we've already been through all this.
Okay. Does anyone on the board have any comments?
I just have a question about this sort of reference to 2019 and 2020 stuff. But before I get into that, I just want to explain, you know, obviously there's a great deal of frustration that's being brought to bear in this meeting, and I completely understand that. But I guess I would also just ask on your end to understand that there's a lot of historical information that we're also trying to understand. So we're asking questions tonight in an effort to try to unearth some of that. As you know, none of us were on the select board when any of these underlying things happened. So there's quite a bit of history that needs to be learned, in addition to the fact that we aren't the board with jurisdiction over road acceptance to begin with. And so all of the detail has been at the planning board level. So I guess I would just ask for a little bit of understanding as we try to get up to speed on this, and to understand that our questions are meant to try to better understand the situation. So my question about the 2019 and 2020 situation is, was there a homeowners association that was representing all of the residents of Century Mill Estates in those discussions? Because I think this is a really key question that Kate's asking about. There's many residents of Century Mill Estates, and if the board is trying to reach some sort of resolution or work toward one, we need to know that it's like a global resolution that represents everybody there. So maybe somebody can just speak to, is there a homeowners association?
I can also speak to that too.
Yeah,
Okay.
there was a
Go-
steering committee. There was a steering committee that negotiated all of this in 2019 and 20. Because we don't control the homeowners association, the builder still does.
Is that steering committee still intact?
No, when we got to, well, there is a steering committee, it's different people now.
Okay, but does that steering
you can
committee represent all of the homeowners in the development?
Yeah, I'm Craig Herrick. I live at 70 Old Stone Circle. I was on the steering committee. Part of the issue that we have is our developer has unilateral control over the HOA. He and he alone can permit people on the steering committee, and he can kick them off. And probably not shockingly, he kicks people off quite frequently. So the steering committee is constantly rotating individuals. There's usually 2 at a time. We have all gotten together on multiple occasions to form a quorum, as it's been suggested, so that we can sit in these meetings and present a united front. I think what's difficult for us to understand, and I do appreciate what you're saying, Brian, that, you know, you're asking questions, you're trying to learn, you're trying to get up to speed. The advice we're being given is you need to all come together, present a united front, and maybe we can do something. We've been told that in the past. We've done that in the past. We've come to these meetings as a united front, representing the HOA as the steering committee. And then years later, when we repeat this, it's kind of like, well, you guys have to understand, we need to start from scratch and understand what you've done in the past. So everybody on here, forgive us, is pretty exasperated because we've had this meeting, I don't know how many times. There's a number of people on this meeting right now that have been members of the steering committee, that have been on these planning board meetings, that have presented. I mean, we have gone through our own research. We have got punch lists together. We have called engineers. We have put in our own money. And every time the target is moved, the goal is moved, there's some reason why we can't move forward. And it's great that everybody understands and has compassion, but that's not really doing anything for our neighborhood. We need action.
Okay.
I've tried to raise my hand. I'm sorry. I've tried to raise my hand, Kate,
Yep,
several times on this. I'm on my phone.
No,
And
go
to
ahead.
Craig, and to Craig's
Introduce
point-
yourself.
Yep,
Introduce
Matthew
yourself.
Matthew Fanning, 52 Old Stone Circle. To Craig's point, we have had this meeting several times, the steering committee and all of those things. We've had it with several people from the DPW. It has changed. The list has changed. At the end of the day, there was a bond for the road and infrastructure. And through completion, it was inspected and people went through that and they held back certain bonds and they released the bond to the builder. That was the town of Bolton accepting the road. Moving the goal line throughout all of the times that they've accepted the road and given the bond back to the builder, why was it ever released? And this isn't your fault. This isn't anyone on this call's fault. But our question is, when the bond was released, the roads theoretically are accepted by Bolton to the builder. That was their own fault. It doesn't have anything to do with the owners of the properties now. The town's malpractice is not the homeowner's fault. And if the town receives 100% of our property taxes with no discount to anything else, that doesn't make any sense.
Okay, I do see that there are two more hands raised and I'm gonna take.
Excuse me,
those-
Kate, you did not respond to my question, and no one on the board responded to my question.
Well, I'd like to
My
hear
statement.
what the, I'd like to hear
No,
what the
I would
res-
like a response because this is recorded. I would like
I
a
understand
response, a
that, and
professional response.
excuse me. I am going to hear from the other residents who also have input to make, who have hands raised, and then I will have some thoughts.
I said I couldn't raise my hand, but I would like to speak. You gave me the point to speak. I would like a response to what I said, to be documented.
Okay, I would like to hear from Randy. I'm gonna get your last name wrong.
It's Jasum.
Just assume that's okay. We're not going to hold anything against you. So 75 Old Stone Circle. I just wanted to piggyback on Craig's comment. So we have gone through this for several iterations over, upwards of 7 to 10 years. And at the crux of it, we talk about coming together as a united front in the HOA, where, which is very difficult for us to do because by definition, it is a conflict of interest when we have Mr. Bendenson, who is the developer of the neighborhood, trying to get road acceptance, but is also the sole trustee who has all the power in the decision making. In Mr. Bendenson, as the trustee of the HOA, does not have these residents' best interests at hand because he knows that at the end of the day that it's going to come at a cost for Mr. Bendenson as the developer of the neighborhood. So, and just one final comment to kind of piggyback on what Kai said earlier. I know that there is, in fact, I know that there's been some change on the board, and just to make everybody aware here, the residents are aware, but the board members may not. We have retained legal counsel, and we are in active litigation against Mr. Bendenson to try to resolve these issues. So our hope is, you know, collectively, the three parties involved, the town, the residents, and Mr. Bendenson, are able to resolve this moving forward. You know, the town will at some point be subpoenaed as part of the discovery process. And we're hoping that we can work collectively together to just get this across the goal line and be done with this, so that, you know, the common foe here, which is Andy, Mr. Bendenson, is, you know, no longer a part of the picture. And that's, you know, I'll answer any questions that you might have, but that's, I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you. I appreciate that information. Someone named Vince with their hand up, please introduce yourself. Someone named Vince.
Yes, hello.
Yep.
Vince LaRosa, 73 Old Stone, and I agree with all of my neighbors here. Everything that's been said is accurate. I've been to many of these meetings. Pre-COVID, we were live. They're all documented, and then we went through COVID, and these meetings have been Zoom for a while, but it's been the same conversation. I do appreciate, Kate, your comments, and it sounds like you have the information to a certain point, and that's the last point it's been. And it's been at a stalemate before that. I just want you to understand, and it sounds like you all have a lot of research to do, and that's totally fine, because this has been a very long process. We've dealt with many planning boards. We've dealt with many steering committees. We've dealt with many different people, and that's the challenge that we're in here. But what I would like you to understand, and what Matt was talking about with the bond, and the reason that this is so egregious, is that when that bond was accepted, and that the town had acceptance in that, okay, they weren't accepting the roads, they were accepting the bond, okay, that was a big deal at that point. It was after that time that the punch list got changed. Okay, so that is when we're talking about moving goalposts from the town. Okay, and I think that's why we're all very upset, is because we had a path forward. We were all in it together, 100% unified as a neighborhood at the time. And then we got to that point when we were going towards road acceptance, and the punch list entirely changed on us. We'd never gotten an answer as to why. We'd never gotten an answer as to what's changed, but that was a significantly larger number, and that's the number that you see before you today, not the number that we were all agreeing and working towards originally. And that's at what point it's become a stalemate. So I'd ask you all, and I appreciate this call, and I appreciate you taking the call, but we are trying, as Randy said, to work with you. It is sort of our last ditch effort. We're trying to work with you, but this is where we are, and I hope you can understand it is the town that changed the goalposts, and not the builder, and nothing else at this point. It's the town, and we really would like an answer to Matt's point as to why.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to take one more comment. PM?
It's PM. Very good, Kate. How you doing? Thank you very much. Hey, Brian, thank you. And I agree. The history is really important.
Okay, just state your name and your full name and address.
Hume Summerware, 4 Cider Circle. I've been here since 2017, so I'm a second owner. Brian, I think the history is really important. In fact, I did submit a Freedom of Information Act to the town, and I was met with a fee to get that back. I think it was like $1,200, $1,500. I would love if you were able to get that data. We'd love to see that data, because in 2019, I think we were aligned. In fact, I know we're aligned because Andy Bendenson was walking around the neighborhood planting trees. That's a level of punch list where he was planting trees. He updated both the cul-de-sacs to the spec of the town. So there was definitely a punch list. We did go through that punch list, to Chris's point. The other thing I'd ask you to do, if you haven't already, is to take a look at the DPW report, because I find it interesting, and Kai, Shad, and myself had a conversation with the town administrator. There are things on that punch list which I find amazing. Driveways that are not to code. How did they get accepted in the first place? Or how did they get built in the first place? So, and that was a significant amount of money if you look at the DPW punch list. So the goalposts has definitely moved. Now, I'm not saying there isn't stuff to do, and I think the residents of Century Mill will be happy, but it's got to be something that is makes sense. The list does not make sense. And my last comment, Kate, and thank you for letting me speak, is that Kai has said this a number of times, and I think it is really important. We really should have the DPW do a second assessment or have an independent person come out do an assessment if that is truly the path forward, because I do not trust that DPW list. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for being here. It is very clear that this is a significant issue that does need to come to a resolution. You know, we are not the board that would make the recommendation for street acceptance, but you know, you are right. We are sort of the CEOs of the town. And I think this is going to require further discussion and you know, work with all of the parties that have been identified to figure out how to get a resolution. And that's going to take some thought on my part and the select board's part as to how to make that happen. And obviously there is additional information that we need. So I don't want you to walk away from this thinking that you're getting blown off, or that the select board is not interested or doesn't care. You're residents in the town. You pay taxes, and I think we would like to try to figure out a way to help you.
Thanks, Kate. I can't raise my hand. Once again, it's Matt Fanning at 52 Old Stone Circle. You did not answer my question, and I know you're concluding this, so I'm going to keep this very brief. I just want to document it on the recording. I want you to be, so thank you very much for letting me speak, and I do appreciate everyone's time and everybody's patience with this, and you guys are relatively new and gaining information, so I do want to say thank you. That being said, to my statements earlier, I have never heard of any town after releasing a bond for a road that is not accepted. This is the whole reason for the bond of a builder.
Yep, and as I said at the outset, I am not an expert in any of this. You know, these are not questions that I am capable of answering right now. This is information.
And thank you for gathering the information, but I just wanted that documented on the recording. So thank you very much.
This is information that the select board is going to need to work through. And you know, I will commit that this will be an ongoing issue that we will take seriously. I don't know right now how to help, but it is something that we will work towards and try to figure out how to bring the different parties together. Is there anything else that the board would like to say?
Yeah, I guess I'll just add, you know, when I was listening to the various comments describing, you know, people saying they've been residents since 2013, 2015, it really does sound like you've gone through like a Kafkaesque experience a bit with changing personnel on the town side, changing board members, meetings that you feel like things were addressed and then not addressed. So I'm sure I would feel frustrated if I were in your position as well. And so I'd like to understand more. I agree with Kate. I think all of us are going to want to dig in a bit more, especially into the pre-COVID history. But I guess I would just ask that you remember that as we do that, you know, there's the town and there's the boards, and then there's the actual human beings that were in roles at various points in time. And so as we're doing our best to get up to speed, it's just helpful to avoid things like you're moving the goalposts or you've moved the goalposts, because there's human beings and then there's the people that were in those roles at various times. And we're going to do our best to try to
Great question, Brian. 52 Old Stone Circle, Matt Fanning. The goalpost is moving, our taxes remain the same. I understand what your statement.
Yeah.
Let's have an action item out of this meeting of when we can expect from the people on this call when the next meeting will be to address this, because we've been pushed and told and absolutely understand what you're saying and agree. But what is the action item? When can we commit to a response from the town and the planning committee?
And this is I'm sorry, this is Kathleen McDougall, 51 Old Stone Circle. I think it's important to understand that the goalpost, the target, has moved for us. And As people, as individuals occupying your roles, your predecessors were the very ones who did that.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate,
And
I
I would
appreciate
just
the
like to
comments.
say something. I would like to
I'm
say
going to
something
take
as
only
well.
one more comment because we do have a number of other agenda items. So one last comment from whoever was just speaking. Please identify yourself.
Okay. My name is Christine Privatera. I'm a resident of 71 Mill Pond Road. My husband is Kai Chuang, the one who has organized this entire meeting. We have lived here since 2013. We have been one of the first residents of this development. We have done everything to try and work with the town and the developer to make sure that these roads have been accepted. We have paid our taxes. We have, as people have stated tonight, gone through multiple meetings such as this with no resolution. We are extremely frustrated, and we deserve to have this resolved, not just because we're paying extraordinary taxes to the town. You're sending the buses up our road, so you think that it's okay to send the buses up our road because, you know, we'll acknowledge that the town of Bolton has to send buses to our residents, but you won't deliver mail, and we'll still pay full taxes, and somehow you find it acceptable not to accept the roads on which you're driving buses, on which you're picking up students who attend schools in this town. It's
Okay.
absolutely
Thank you for your comments.
frustrating.
I understand, and I hear your
No,
comments.
you don't,
You're-
actually.
You're
You don't.
you're getting a little personal with the accusations as to what we're doing. But I certainly think that everybody on the select board has heard your concerns. I will have this on an agenda sometime in February after we have had the time to dig in a little bit further and hopefully maybe have some conversations offline about constructive ways to move forward. And I hope that everybody will continue to be patient with us as we work to figure out the history here and to try and negotiate a path forward, which is what my goal is. So we are going to move on to the next agenda item, which is the town building discussion. This is a continuation of a conversation we started at our last meeting, specifically with regard to repair and maintenance costs for Houghton Building and Town Hall. And it's something that we continued because I thought it was important that Brian be part of the conversation on this topic as well. So Marie, do you want to just give a little bit of a summary as to where we are on these discussions and the issues?
Certainly, the impetus for putting it on was looking at the capital plan from a 10,000-foot level. I'm well aware that both the town hall as well as Houghton are not new issues. It's not being raised due to a lack of awareness, but there is an ongoing concern, more notably this year, as to how do we proceed. For the town hall, there are a couple of projects that were submitted by Randy to basically shore up the building and invest, which would encounter a tipping point. For the Houghton building, the usage by the town is somewhat sporadic for meetings, but we are being required to address the envelope. My ask to the board is not to resolve these issues tonight. I'm looking at a large capital request list that we couldn't possibly fund this year. But what I want is to queue up the discussion ideally so that we do know the direction that the town wants to go with these two 170-plus-year-old buildings. From my perspective, there are three choices. One is, asking the town if they wish to invest to make both buildings functional for long term. The second would be to ask the town if they wish to transition, and determine what to do with the building assets. We don't have a comparable cost, and I look forward to perhaps soliciting requests for quotes. And then the third option would be more or less what we are doing with very limited safety upgrades and publicly accepting the inefficiencies. I like the buildings. I just want to know, what do I do in terms of capital?
Yeah, and this is, as I said last time, something that I think requires a pretty extensive discussion and probably some public input in terms of, how the town would like to proceed with, some of the buildings in the heart of town center. Brian, do you have any thoughts you'd like to share in terms of how to just to approach this in the, for the next fiscal year?
Yeah, and I had a chance to connect with Marie in advance of this meeting just to kind of talk through what I had been thinking. So I guess what I'll share is I agree that with both the Houghton building and the town hall, we're reaching a point where we do need to make a more long-term decision. And I agree public input is really important given the historic value, the kind of they're sort of centerpiece buildings for the town. So for the most immediate fiscal year, I think we probably would just need to continue with the most limited upgrades or like must-have work being done just for the short term, but maybe be in a position to perhaps have a few slides either at town meeting or in the April meeting before town meeting, where we tee up some of the longer term options as part of a kickoff to a more public input process, because I don't think the select board should be making decisions about those two buildings in a vacuum, given their importance to the town.
Bill, anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, I like the idea of soliciting public feedback, possibly open meetings, or I think the transfer station ad hoc committee worked really well. Maybe we could look at forming something like that to solicit feedback and do surveys and ask people what they think of those of the various options that will be presented to us.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea too. And I agree with Brian that it's not the time to be investing large sums of capital into buildings that we don't have a clear direction for. I know one of the bigger concerns, certainly that Marie has highlighted, is the building envelope of Houghton. I did a walkthrough on a kind of capital needs tour a couple of weeks ago. And there are some parts of the Houghton building that you can touch with your finger and the siding will disintegrate.
Yeah.
And that obviously is a concern because, whatever we do with it, it's not going to get in better condition if we don't address some of these immediate things. So I guess my thought process would be whatever immediate remediation is needed to make sure that we don't have further deterioration. I'm not sure that's as much of an issue at Town Hall, but I think certainly at Houghton. Does anybody feel differently?
No, I agree. And living in a home that is slightly older than the Houghton building, if you don't keep up on the maintenance, it's only going to cost more, and it can be significantly more.
Is that enough direction, Marie?
It's direction, at least in terms of the capital plan. For the goal of being prepared in the pre-town meeting slides, would it make sense then for those options? I have the highest level of costs associated with the investment for functionality long-term. What I would like to do is then request Jenny to send out something of a request for quotes at the other end of the spectrum for, you know, leasing office space or, you know, other options. My goal is not to remove any parcels or any buildings that are currently on the tax rolls off the tax rolls. Those don't change. But to be able to give a magnitude of costs.
I think the more information that we can present to the town and the more transparent we are about all of the options, the better. You know, I think that we did a good job of presenting all of that information in the context of the override, and residents were certainly very appreciative of having a great volume of information to be able to make decisions. So.
And just like the override, I think informational meetings may be a good approach to this topic as well.
Okay. Good enough, Murray?
Good enough. It sounds like a job for a select board liaison.
Well, I was actually just about to say that I'd be happy to volunteer to help work with Marie on slides or materials and things like that. I do just want to, sorry, there's a train passing by. To Bill's point about public information sessions, just wanted to be clear that what I was contemplating is we'd have sort of an initial presentation of some information right around the time of town meeting, but then in the following 12 months would be the more like we're not going to try to do all the public information sessions before town meeting. I don't think we're making any decisions at this town meeting is what I wanted to say.
Yeah, but I think we have enough to plan for budget season for fiscal 27 in terms of where we want to invest or don't want to invest money. And we have sort of at least the beginnings of a plan forward for how to address the long-term needs of the town.
I think at some point, Brian, wouldn't you agree that we could, after we did the town meeting, we could start the informational meetings or the ad hoc committee and start the process? Because, you know, if you don't start, it's going to be a couple fiscal years further down the road and we're nowhere.
Oh yeah, no, completely. It's just that last year before the override, we did all the meetings like before May, and I don't think we're doing that. We're gonna wait till after the meeting.
No, I think after we do the presentation at town meeting, we'll be able to get community interest for ad hoc committee or whatever formation that we need to further explore.
Okay, great. We are running significantly late, but our next agenda item is public comment. So if anybody has a public comment, please raise your hand. And I am not seeing any. So we are going to move on to the town administrator report.
Great. And as an update for our development, Alta is moving forward. They're still awaiting the DEP's approval for their wastewater facility, the water supply, the clubhouse, and residential building number 3. Still shooting though for having residential occupancy in the early part of January. Per the select board's decision, the request for a light fixture on pole 59 has been submitted to National Grid. Recently followed up with them to find out a duration, have not yet heard back, but it's not off my radar. As we are entering into the 160th day of the boil water order, I wanted to provide an update. The advisory committee had entertained 2 meetings ago a request from the DPW director for covering the $71,250 required to install temporary disinfection. Advisory acknowledged that this was an important thing and that it was unexpected and unforeseen, but they also realized if they were to have approved it, it would deplete their reserve fund, and so early in the year. So given that we're also receiving very diligent follow-up from DEP regarding the status, we've contracted with the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, RH White. And for that entire scope of the project, the interim funding source is the DPW's line of local improvements. It's a little bit more on this later. I had the opportunity to speak with Representative Hogan on an unrelated matter earlier. She'd mentioned that both our special act and DCAM home rule or DCAM House legislation has not moved forward, but that we should be aware that the alcohol legislative hearings will be typically held in May. The next part of grants could actually be renamed perhaps the conservation agent update. The conservation agent has submitted a fully reimbursable grant to the Massachusetts Department of Fish and Game. She is also working on the Community Compact GIS grant, and in consideration of her capital request, or actually the Conservation Commission's capital request, she is working on a grant for mass trails. Another large grant to the state, which is being pursued, is the DPW's work on the culvert replacement project for the next two most critical projects on the list, two most critical culverts on that list. Regarding staffing, I'm in receipt of candidates' applications for the Chief of Police, and the application close date will be December 31st. We are still planning to transition to a more user-friendly website, and all credit for managing this goes to Jenny Jacobson. The Civic Plus had recently informed us that one of the key components of our website that we use would not be supported in 2027, and that they were unwilling, in effect, to move it as configured over. So that's sort of a damper on it. It is the system that lets us see who has applied for different boards. The town clerk uses this component sort of religiously, and the loss of this functionality will be tricky. Unlike my earlier update regarding the STRIP program, where there was going to be a lottery due to some participant withdrawals for the STRIP program, there was not a need for the oversubscribed, although that reconfiguration where participants are limited in terms of the hours, and ergo the write-off will be in place. Under somewhat sobering news, but we knew it would be happening, the tax bills for the upcoming quarter will be mailed on the last day of December. On the town hall administrative side, we're prepared for residents having a lot of questions, coming in with a great deal of concerns, and we're working on assuring staffing. Under committee related, Park and Rec is continuing the discussion of field usage fees. They have not yet determined which meeting. At their next meeting, though, on January 8th, they're going to be reviewing and approving all of the parameters for the upcoming summer camp in calendar 26. Also in your TA report packet is a recommendation to the board for a sunshade. This is part of the comprehensive permit. We'll see other indications of this on the agenda later, but it is at the discretion of the select board for playground equipment on Memorial Field. Their desire would be to acquire a sunshade. Advisory has started the line item budget reviews and has gone through animal control, veterans agent, town clerk, fire EMS, and we also participated in a capital walkthrough at the schools. For folks watching at home, unlike earlier grim prognoses, the Neshoba Nursing Hours will be back, and they'll be appearing at the COA as per usual, third Tuesday of the month. Wanted to simultaneously sort of seek and convey a desire to close the town hall to the public on Wednesday, the 24th at 12:30 p.m. Last year, I recommended that the town hall close early on the 24th. That was notably a Tuesday, one of our long days. We'd received no pushback on it. And likewise, just reminding folks, the transfer station next Wednesday will be open 8 a.m. to noon. And if you're looking for a place to make your tax-deductible donation, don't forget the Elderly and Disabled Taxation Aid Fund. The state part, I want to kick off a little bit in terms of, what is the state saying? And some of this is relevant if you think back to the earlier component of grants. The majority of our grants are through the state, or the majority of grants for which we are currently applying. The state had kicked off its annual joint consensus revenue, and I think my favorite word to describe it would be muted. In effect, the state is not seeing its revenue picture improve, even though the lottery collections are surpassing expectations. At the legislative level, and this will be appearing later again on the agenda, the Mass Municipal is seeking an inflation-adjusted increase in unrestricted government aid or local aid. This is listed as one of our revenue components. Sort of in tandem, or perhaps in odds, the Senate is trying to advance a bill which would permit municipalities to pass something, the tax shock prevention credit. Not sure if, one would assign a probability to both being equal, and perhaps I'm too pessimistic. I don't view either of them as moving forward. For the board, I wanted to broach the outcome of advisory. Advisory was great in their in-person capital meeting, and made some initial allocations with regards to the newly formed Capital Stabilization Fund. There's a discussion of funding sources, an avid deep discussion of, the capital needs, and Chair presented the great presentation that the Select Board had seen prior. Following the reserve fund request, though, there was a discussion of possible next steps. At a high level, the board has two options on this, as I have committed the local improvements fund to cover the temporary disinfection. One of the options is to not do anything. Local improvements is the funding source that Randy uses in effect for his spring cleanup. So I'd asked him, well, what would change? In effect, activities that are typically performed, march forward, catch basin cleaning, street sweeping, and striping would not be occurring in the fiscal year. The other option would be calling a special town meeting to address this by moving the certified free cash to this sort of off-cycle capital item to backfill the cost of the required disinfection. Because it is a capital item which would be funded by free cash, it would be similar to the other projects that advisory had reviewed. It would have no impact on residents' tax bills. And I just wanted to put in there, we don't have the option to, renege on moving to the temporary disinfection system, either from a perspective of DEP and their ability to fine, as well as the operational shenanigans in which we are continually engaged. And last but not least, should the board choose to move forward with a special town meeting, I'd asked the town clerk to contact the school and the moderator, as well as other relevant players, and find out if there was a date that would be workable. Thursday, February 12th seems to work well. I've looked at prior town meeting warrants, special town meeting warrants rather. We've had them on Mondays and Tuesdays and Wednesdays, never a Thursday before, and all typically for an emergency, unexpected, unforeseen expense. And that's all I have.
Okay, well, that was a lot, so thank you. Do you want feedback in terms of which option the board would be inclined toward?
That would be tremendously helpful. Should there be a decision to not move forward, it would let us do some advanced communication to residents so they aren't calling and being upset.
Yeah, Bill, Brian, do either of you have thoughts in terms of whether to move towards a special town meeting to backfill the funding for the temporary disinfection?
I just, I know that there was you said that there was like a draft calendar attached, and I apologize that I don't think I saw that. My question is, do you need us to vote on anything tonight, or does your draft calendar allow for the posting and voting in January?
Yes, there is ample time. The draft calendar is page 3 of the town administrator report. So yes, there is time. But to
Yeah.
get a sense of the board at this point would be terrifically helpful.
I mean, it doesn't impact the tax bills. It's something that must be done. If for the reasons you said, Marie, I mean, we are going to be required to do it, or we're going to be fined for not doing it. So it simply must be done. And the things that we would forego if we don't backfill it, backfill the local improvements. I mean, street sweeping to me is not just a cosmetic issue, it's also a safety issue of cars slipping on all the accumulated winter sand and that sort of thing. And the striping and the catch basins. I mean, those to me are safety issues that we shouldn't be foregoing.
I agree, and Kate, if we call a special town meeting and the town residents vote to decline, then they've made that choice. But I don't think, as a member of the select board, I want to forego those local improvements. So I'd be inclined to move forward with a special town meeting.
I would as well. I think it's the best path forward.
Okay.
That is very helpful.
Marie, I do have one question. If we have the $71,000 initial fee, is there the potential to have another one come down that would also require action such as this?
Another large, unexpected, unforeseen
Related specifically to this work?
to water.
Mhm.
To this temporary disinfection, no. Although
Okay.
there is, in effect, once we have shown our forward progress, installing the temporary disinfection, getting the boil water order lifted, there is an expectation on DEP's part that we will be looking at a permanent disinfection approach.
Okay.
All right. So next we are moving on to select board business.
I also have transfer station committee
Yeah.
chart, which I just included in the packet, which is in the packet. I took a pass at this as a talking point, or something for the board to mull, and likewise because you'd asked me to do this, so I had broached this with the DPW director. I could share if this is helpful. Okay,
Yeah, please.
alrighty. What I had done was basically do some research and seek feedback in terms of whether the goal of the committee would be to the board's choosing, and likewise whether operationally their recommendations and efforts would be aligned with the DPW.
Okay. So what are you looking for from us tonight? Whether this is the general.
The board had asked me to draft a charge. This committee had agreed that it needed to form it, so I, seek your feedback and, any edits or modifications, and if this is the path that you wish to pursue, then we'll make the edits and modification, and we could put out a call for volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, I think a 5-member advisory committee is probably a good idea. It's not too large and unwieldy. And I know that we do have community members who were very active in the ad hoc group. So there's definitely, I think, community interest in being able to fill those roles. And I think picking up from the ad hoc groups recommendations, there's a lot of underlying work that's kind of already been done in terms of, direction to move forward. So the only question I had on it was the last line, which was having the transfer station committee report to the select board through DPW or as otherwise requested. And I guess I just wasn't sure exactly what that meant or how that would work.
I put that in believing that the transfer station committee is sort of closely aligned with the DPW and the direction of the DPW. Obviously, the committee could make regular quarterly reports, say, to the select board, but I would view their relationship being one of working in tandem with the DPW operations. It's a draft.
Yeah, well, they're the boots on the ground. So I mean, any recommendations have to work for DPW. Brian, Bill, did either of you have any thoughts?
I look at the way that the Public Ways Safety Committee has functioned in really close cooperation with the police department and also the DPW director. And so I guess just as long as the charge and the kind of some of the assumptions that you would put up top are shared with members of that committee so that it's very clear that this is supposed to be a cooperative endeavor with the DPW director. I think it makes sense. I think it's a good idea.
Bill?
I'm good with this language. I don't see any need to make any changes.
Okay. Are we ready to vote on this? Did you want to vote on it, Marie, or is it something that needs to be in a separate agenda item in the future?
It's not yet listed as a vote on the agenda. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, I think we're all generally in agreement that having a standing committee for the transfer station would help to move things forward there.
All right.
Okay. Select board business. Are there any public service announcements?
I have none.
I've got nothing. And Brian's muted, so I guess he has none.
No, I don't.
Future agenda items? Oh, go ahead.
No, I was just just noting in the follow-up to the Century Mill conversation, Kate, you had identified February as an option, and I'm just pointing out that if we do go forward with a special town meeting on the 12th, I believe that that was one of the days potentially being reserved for a select board meeting. So I don't know if that would mean that the Century Mill discussion happens on the 26th. So I'm just pointing that out as a scheduling thing.
Yep, no, we're gonna talk about the meeting dates as our last item so we'll address it then. Select board reports. Anyone? Okay, then we will move on to the select board granted licenses for 2026. We are looking at the alcoholic beverage licenses, common victualler licenses, and the Class 2 license. And I think that if nobody has any real questions, we can do most of this as a single motion. The one thing that I would point out is that I'd like to carve out Colonial Candies, because they have a separate issue that we will need to discuss. But does anybody have any questions on any of the various licenses other than Colonial Candies? Any discussion?
No.
Okay, so does somebody want to make a motion to approve the 2026 licenses as set forth in our meeting packet, other than the license for Colonial Candies?
So moved?
Second.
Okay, roll call, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So with regard to Colonial Candies, we have not received a package from them. So what I think we could do is we could vote to renew their license contingent on receipt of a complete package before the end of this calendar year. And secondarily, we could, I would like a motion to approve me to send a letter to them that if they do not get their package in by the end of the year, they will need to cease all food sales, and we will need to notify the Neshoba Associated Board of Health. So does somebody want to make a motion on issuing a license to Colonial Candies contingent on a receipt of a complete package by December 31st, 2025?
So moved?
Second.
Roll call, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And is there a motion to authorize me to send a letter to Colonial Candies informing them that if they did not submit a package by the end of the year for renewal of their license, they will need to cease food sales, and we will notify the Neshoba Board of Health?
So moved?
Second.
All right, roll call, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So the next issue the next item is a discussion to issue a letter to Dagnall's Liquor Store to surrender, transfer, or reopen within 6 months. Did everybody have a chance to review the draft letter in the packet?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a sort of a follow-up to a discussion at our last meeting, because Dagnall's is currently closed for business. It has ceased operations, but it does still have a license. But we we do want to see that license get used. And so the idea is that Dagnalds would have 6 months from the date of this letter, which will be December 18th, to reopen and resume business, or to move to a new location in Bolton, or to initiate a transfer of the license. So is there any discussion on this?
No.
I think
Okay.
I think the letter's pretty clear, Kate.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve me sending this letter?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Brian,
yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. Next is the vote to endorse to accept the environmental preferable procurement policy or sustainable purchasing policy, which is in the packet. Did anybody have any comments on it or any concerns? Okay, is there a motion to approve the sustainable purchasing policy?
I guess I just have one small question about like who's the exact audience and what's the distribution plan for this policy? Like once it's approved, Marie, like who will receive a copy and who's essentially in charge of abiding by it?
Once we've adopted the policy, or again, it's seemingly annual, it'll be distributed to department heads to be aware of when making their purchasing decisions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other discussion? Is there a motion to approve the sustainable purchasing policy?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
yes.
and I am also a yes.
And Brian, just to add one note, this policy replaces an existing policy that's been distributed annually to staff members. Leslie Case typically initiates the request for the distribution of that letter.
Thanks, Jenny.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is a vote to endorse a letter to our legislative representatives in the State House to increase local aid. This was presented as a form letter. I can't remember which town had initiated it. And Marie had tinkered with it a little bit, and I don't know if my revision came through today to Brian and Bill. Whether you've had a chance to review the revisions from today. But essentially, this is a request to our representative and state senator to advocate for the release of some of the interest on the rainy day fund to increase local aid to municipalities. So any discussion on the letter?
Thanks for taking the lead. Makes sense to me.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the letter looks good.
Okay, is there a motion to approve me sending this letter as written?
So moved.
Second,
Okay, roll call. Brian
yes.
and Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And next, we have a vote to send a letter to the Neshoba Regional School District, drafted by Bill. Bill, do you want to walk us through it?
Yeah. Let me. Okay. So I drafted this letter, and the idea was just to get in front of their budget workshop, which begins in January, and express the importance of staying within that 3% assessment from Neshoba Regional School District, which was outlined by the work that advisory did, Bob Guerrero did, and just to express our concern and our willingness to work with them to stay within that 3% limit.
Thank you for drafting this. This is one of the select board goals for the year is to engage in conversations with the school district about budgeting and the town's tolerance for an increase in assessment. So I appreciate you drafting it, and I think it lays out the position pretty clearly. And we're all going to need to work together to make this happen. So I think this is a good first step.
And I'm open to any suggestions on edits.
The only change that I would make is under requested assessment increase in the third line. I would say instead of we strongly request, I would say strongly urge.
Okay.
That was the only revision that I had. Brian?
That makes sense to me. I thought the letter looked good. And thank you, Bill. And I assume Bob also had some input, given that would be on the letter as well, at least on the draft I saw.
Oh, I see Bob has his hand raised.
Yeah.
Yes, hello, good evening. I just wanted to take the opportunity to remind the board that the assessment that will come out of the school district, they will have one number for the operating budget, and the assessments that will come out will get distributed to the 3 towns based on a formula based on population. But if we put forward a suggestion that the Bolton assessment increase no more than 3%, and one of our other towns, either Lancaster or Stowe, could only tolerate, say, a 2.5% increase, we could inadvertently be, hurting their case. So I think we just need to be conscious of the fact that we don't all get to pick a separate assessment. We all go up or down together.
So was there anything in this letter specifically that you would want to have revised to try and address that?
I don't know that the language needs to change. It may be worthwhile to just, you may already be planning on doing this, but socialize it with the other towns to just gauge their tolerance for a 3% increase.
That's a good point, Bob.
Well, I hear the point for sure. I guess though, just in the interest of getting the letter to them sooner rather than later, it's framed as an increase of no more than, right? So obviously we'd all love to, right? Like to meet whatever the lowest or most conservative town happens to need. So I don't think there's anything, like we're not waiving anything by saying no more than 3%.
Fair enough.
I'm okay. Just in the interest of getting this letter out sooner rather than later. But it's a good point, Bob.
All right, thanks, Bob. So is there a motion to approve this letter on behalf of the select board to Neshoba Regional School District?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
And I am also a yes.
And can I add one thing, Kate? Bob, you're okay being a signature on this?
So I'm personally okay with that, although it just occurred to me that advisory has not voted on this. And would we need to vote on this before it goes out?
scroll up, Bill, I think it's coming from, oh yeah, if it's coming from the advisory committee, then.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy enough to take that out. The reason why I thought it was a good idea to include Bob on that is because he does have a good relationship with Ross specifically, I believe, and he's worked with Ross in the past. So I thought that would give the letter a little bit more weight with his signature on it.
And I would be happy to sign it, but again, in the interest of time, if you want to drop the advisory committee, that's also fine with me.
There's also the option for the advisory committee to vote to send the exact same letter coming from the advisory committee at a later date. That way it gets out early, but it gets out united.
I think that's a good idea. If everybody's okay, why don't we drop advisory and they can send a letter out later?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. You'll also need to change that first sentence.
Yep.
In one small super nitpicky thing, I think we do select board as 2 words.
Okay. I'll make these changes and get the revised letter to Jenny.
Okay, so I don't know that we need a new motion for those minor changes because the select board's approved it.
Yep.
So the next item is a vote to execute easements by Alta Neshoba Valley LLC. Marie, do you want to run us through these quickly?
Sure. As mentioned before, Alta Neshoba is running through all of their requirements on the comprehensive permit that they had to fulfill before the first certificate of occupancy. One of them that encompasses both of these easements is to provide an emergency vehicle access easement. If you're looking at your packet, that is I work better on pictures, page 40. And then the second easement is for a public access, pedestrian access. That is page 49. These have been reviewed and they require a sort of execution. So it is yet another box for Wood Partners to check off.
Sorry, Marie, when you say they've been reviewed, could you just spell out like who's had eyes on these things from the town side?
From the town side, it has been the director of planning, as well as with regards to the pedestrian access from the sort of cart path has been viewed by Rebecca. I can double check in terms of whether it's gone by our own council. I'd presume that Pam had shipped it past council, but can't swear on that.
So, if there's no, I guess maybe our next meeting is early January. I personally would really like to know for sure.
Okay.
Just whether
Who reviewed it? Yeah. Okay.
And I'll just add, there is one change to each of the easements in the copies that are in the yellow folder. And that is that the language at the request of the conservation agent has been shifted from Town of Bolton to Town of Bolton acting through its Conservation Commission.
So is there a time sensitivity on this, or do we have a couple weeks into January to?
It's a question of whether it is likely that they would be receiving their first CO from, they're awaiting DEP approval, just so that they can, operate and function, and then they require completion of the easements as per our comprehensive permit.
Well, our first proposed meeting is January 8th.
Yeah.
Are we likely?
Would a vote conditional upon review by town council be sufficient?
I guess as long as it didn't have substantial changes. Um,
Well, if it has already been reviewed by council, it would tick the box is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, it would be that.
I know when I reached out to Pam to request that the documents were signed in advance of the meeting, she had some hesitancy that that would slow things down.
Okay, so maybe we could do a motion to execute the easements on the condition that they have been reviewed by town council. That they have already been reviewed by town council. And if not, we'll just need to take it up on the 8th.
That sounds fine. They're providing easements to us, but yes.
Okay. So is there a motion to vote to execute the easements by Alta Neshoba Valley LLC contingent upon them having been reviewed by town council?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And if it hasn't been reviewed by town council, then we'll hear it on January 8th. You're almost done. Is there a motion to approve bills and payroll warrant W26-12?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call, Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And we are not going to review any minutes tonight. So the final, the final item on the agenda under select board business is setting meeting dates, select board meeting dates through annual town meeting. We do have a list of draft dates. The only one that I'd like to revise is to take out February 12th, 2026, since we are eyeing that for a potential special town meeting, and instead schedule a meeting on February 5th, 2026, the week before, just because I don't think we can really afford to lose any meetings during budget season. Does anybody have any conflicts, concerns? Brian, are you thinking?
I'm gonna do my best to avoid conflicts, but as of now, that's fine.
Okay. And I also would love to do at least a couple of these in person. Are there any dates that anybody knows they would definitely be unavailable for an in-person meeting, or any dates that they would definitely be available? Marie?
Brian, you are muted.
Sorry, thanks. I was gonna say I'll definitely be around on the 8th of January. But then to be honest with you, it gets really tough until April with my travel schedule to know for sure.
Okay. Well, then should we, Murray?
Yeah, not to make this more complex, but if the board members could just keep in mind, there could also be a shift in the board's regular meeting schedule, say from Thursdays to another day. Maybe not this fiscal year, but it would give you ample time over the weekend to review packets and stuff like that. All right. Back to mute.
My brain can't think that far ahead right now. All right, so why don't we target January 8th for in-person? Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And maybe target April 9th. And we can always change it, but yeah, I do see value in doing some in-person meetings. All right, so we'll target for those two.
So I do have a question about the in-person meetings where the select board room has historically been the location for in-person meetings, and it is no longer wired since COVID to be easily recorded by or broadcast by Bolton Access TV. Are you thinking the Houghton building or are you thinking the select board meeting room?
I prefer the Houghton building. I think the space is a lot more conducive, and that's been fairly easy, I think, for Bolton Access, right?
It is.
Yeah, they already have their stuff set up in there.
Mhm.
Okay, so do we need a motion to approve these dates, or are we good with the dates as discussed?
You'd need a motion to set those dates.
Okay, so is there a motion to set select board meetings for January 8th, January 22nd, February 5th, February 26th, March 12th, March 26th, April 9th, April 30th, and May 14th of 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. So having reached the end of select board business, the last item is an executive session. Is there a motion to enter executive session? Oh, wait a second.
I can make the motion for you, Kate.
Oh, do you have,
Oh,
okay,
Mary,
do you have the language? Go for it. It's purpose 2.
I had purpose 3 down. Is that not right, Marie?
No, it is purpose 2.
Okay, so is there a motion to move into executive session pursuant to Mass General Law 30A, Section 21A, Purpose 2, to conduct contract negotiations with non-union personnel?
So moved.
Second that.
Okay, roll call. Bill,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
and I am also a yes. And we will return to open session to adjourn.
Give me 1 sec.